So you've got £2 to spend on a laptop and you want it to run like a dream, crushing all of your gaming desires as well as handling some work or editing on the go. But what laptop do you choose? Well, the Polish company Dream Machines want you to look at their latest and greatest, the RG2070S-17EU31. Okay, well, the name isn't that great at all, but does the bad naming choice reflect the laptop's performance? Well, let's find out. Before we begin, my name's Andy and welcome to Kit Guru. If you're new here or even a regular, we'd love for you to show us some support for free by hitting that subscribe button if you enjoy what we do. As you may have guessed from the catchy name, we're looking at a fairly large laptop here. It's a 17.3-inch one to be precise, and it definitely has the specs to be a desktop replacement, coming in at €2,049.99 plus shipping. That's approximately around £1,855. Now, this definitely is not a budget laptop, so we'd better see some high-end specs, great build quality, as well as good test results to back up that price, right? Well, don't worry, we'll be looking at all of that and more. Let me start off by running through the base specs of our review sample. It's got a 13.3-inch Full HD 1920 by 1080p 240Hz screen. It's got a 6-core Intel Core i7-10750H at 2.6 GHz up to 5 GHz in turbo boost. NVIDIA RTX 2070 Super 8 GB, and this is not a Max-Q variant either. We've got 16 GB of DDR4, 2666 Mhz SO-DIMM RAM, and we've got 1 TB M.2 SSD with Wi-Fi 6 enabled as well. Okay, so it's definitely got my attention here. That's some great specs on paper, especially with that full-size 2070 Super and the 240Hz panel. This is clearly going to be an absolute gaming beast, but it also looks like it will be excellent for productivity too, with that 10th gen i7, the 1 TB SSD and 16 GB of RAM. It looks like they've made some great pairings with nothing out of the ordinary that I wasn't really expecting, but if money was no object, then you do have the option to max out the RAM and the storage via the configuration on their website. So let's take a look at aesthetics and design. Well, straight away, being a 17-inch laptop, it's pretty big and clunky. So honestly, it's a pretty understated design. It's very simple in the stylings with a plain black metal lid, the Dream Machine logo in white in the center. You can see the hinges on the back edge, and I think this is a little bit ugly when you sort of view it from the top down. On the left-hand side, we have a USB-A and USB-C, along with a fairly large exhaust vent, and you can also start to see the more aggressive angles on the base of the unit. On the right is fairly similar with another large exhaust, a USB-A, and some input jacks. Now on the back, we have the rest of our I/O. We have an RJ45, full HDMI, mini DisplayPort, another USB-C, a USB-A, along with the power port. We also have 2 more exhaust vents here with a fairly hectic design around them. There's sort of aggressive lines and then like honeycomb in between. So it's, I don't know what I'm feeling about that, but the vents are nice, of course, because better airflow. On the front, there is an insane amount of LED indicators. There's power, battery, drives, flight modes, and more. It's definitely useful, but it does look a little bit cluttered in my opinion. Now, on the base, there is a lot going on too. A fully plastic design that does feel a little bit cheap to me, but since it is plastic, it shouldn't be as hot to touch when it is on your lap. Now we've got large rubber feet standoffs at the top and the bottom, a huge number of grills and vents for the speakers and airflow, and of course I love the massive grills with the 2 intake fans on the top. The laptop comes with a battery separate for you to install yourself, and I like this design as it makes it much easier to remove that battery whenever you want to, instead of taking like the entire back plate off and then having to disconnect the battery that way. Towards the front, we have a large cutaway for the card reader too, and personally I prefer them on the sides as this one is recessed, so you will probably need to lift the laptop up to get the cards in and out. Now overall, it's a pretty understated design, and I know a lot of people will actually like this. It would definitely pass as a professional laptop for work, as well as a stealthy gaming beast. So I'm happy to see the excessive ventilation for cooling on powerful laptops, and this is no exception. But we'll find out how it performs in our tests. So opening up the laptop is a great experience. We have the hinges, a fairly stiff resistance, but I'm a fan of that. The screen will stay wherever you put it, but also being such a large screen on two small hinges, there is a fair amount of flex here. And we also have a small forehead and chin with the webcam and mics behind a glossy panel at the top. And towards the bottom, we have the Dream Machine's name in white. So more understated stylings around the keyboard with it slightly sunk into the body. We have a large trackpad with dedicated left and right buttons, a nice clicky power button that I'm definitely a fan of, and we have the keyboard itself. The first thing you'll see is the white and black keys. The font is very clean and easy to see, and I like the white accents around the edges of the keys. We have a number pad and arrow keys as well, and what I really liked was the large left shift key, which I always find better for gaming, especially with laptops that have sort of smaller keys in general. So that is a bonus, and a ton of function buttons over the F keys as well on the top row and the number pad. Standard stuff like media keys, flight mode, night mode, enable disable the screen, trackpad, as well as RGB brightness and more. So the keyboard has a fair amount of flex, but the keys themselves are well spaced, and for me, they're actually really nice to type on. Having that extra room and being a larger laptop definitely helps with the experience, and also it makes gaming really enjoyable on this keyboard too. The matte trackpad works fine, nothing really amazing, but it's not bad either. But you know, having those dedicated left and right buttons is going to be a preference thing. I kind of like it myself. The keyboard is RGB, and this can be customized via Dream Machine's custom software, which is Control Center 3.0. I was impressed with the lack of any bloatware whatsoever. There's no free trials on this laptop at all. It's just straight Windows 10 with Control Center software by Dream Machines. So I personally hate bloatware, so I'm really happy to see that this doesn't have any at all. Opening up Control Center, we have a super simple design. It's easy to read and it's pretty straightforward. We have power modes, so you can set it from quiet, power saving, entertainment, and performance. There's also Flexa key for making your own custom macro commands. There's an LED section for the keyboard, so you can set the brightness, color, and there's also fan control. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Tron with the styling of their HUD, and it shows you the temps and the fan speeds whilst giving you the choice of settings. And finally, we have a dedicated section for graphics card overclocking, and I definitely wasn't expecting to see this. So the only downside is there's no presets to use. It's fully manual and there's no instructions or advice whatsoever. So if you're new to this, I probably wouldn't just dive in messing around with the sliders. It would have been nice to get some sort of brief tutorial or guidance, but in my opinion, for those that already know their way around basic overclocking, it's actually quite a nice addition to see. So let's check out some tests and results. So where possible, I've compared the laptop to other laptops that we've tested in the past to see how it stacks up. All the tests were done via performance mode with the laptop plugged in, and of course, feel free to pause the video at any time to look at the tests more in depth. So Cinebench R15 and R20 shows us that the i7 performs very well, scoring second place in R15, only beaten out by a Ryzen 9 and coming in first place with R20. So our BMW render completed in 319.84 seconds. Now, I was expecting it to be marginally faster, but this is still pretty good result. PC Mark 10 results show us it's absolutely capable across a range of tests. Our memory benchmark comes in with great results for our 16GB of RAM. Crystal Disk Mark results for our 1TB SSD aren't bad, but I was expecting to see better results. In actual use, I didn't really notice any setbacks though. Synthetic gaming benchmarks in 3D Mark were of course excellent with our full-size 2070 Super, so it performs as expected, coming in first place in Firestrike, Firestrike Ultra, and Time Spy, beating out all the other systems. Real-world gaming though, I tried to push the laptop to the absolute maximum, often going above the presets where possible to put everything to the highest setting possible. We're testing out how it performs under load, but do remember you can always turn down settings or use, the presets to get better FPS. We'll start with Call of Duty Modern Warfare because I tested it with both ray tracing on and off with just the same settings to see, what the results would be. With ray tracing off, we gain nearly 20 FPS, but honestly, even with it on, it's actually very playable. Division 2 is always a bit of a killer, but even with max everything, we almost got 70 FPS. So another killer is always Shadow of the Tomb Raider, but I was surprised to see almost 100 FPS here, and it played great. Resident Evil 2 Remake got us over 120 FPS, and it also had impressive 1% lows too, and the same can be said with Doom Eternal, almost getting us to 150 FPS. So on our 240Hz panel, it looked amazing. It was so fun to play, and I must admit I did get a bit distracted, forgetting I was even meant to be testing, so it took me a little bit longer than I expected. CPU temperatures were good when idle, but under load it almost hits 100 degrees C. At 98, that's pretty hot. Gaming laptops are known for their heat, and the maximum operating temperature for the i7-10750H is 105 degrees, so it shouldn't be a big problem over time. The issue this kind of heat does create is degrading performance results. Our Cinebench R20 multi-core test shows a peak temperature of 98. During this run, our CPU's clock speed is 4090, whereas after 10 consecutive runs, our clock speed drops down to 3393.4. So that's a clock speed drop of 700 MHz, and as such, since it's running at slower speeds, our temperature drops to a steadier 94 degrees. GPU temps were actually pretty good, keeping us under 90 degrees C even in our most demanding games. Battery life tests were poor, but this is a benchmark after all, and only getting just over an hour whilst gaming and about 3 hours in general use, it's a big, powerful laptop. What do you expect? And also, I do see this as more of a desktop replacement than a portable system. But from flat, our charge time was around 2.5 hours. But I did find in use, I did get slightly more battery life than the tests show. Power consumption was expected with the components inside, and the noise levels were done with the speakers muted. The fans do get pretty loud when they're on maximum, and finally our speakers performed really well too, and they did get really loud themselves. Now what I liked was the lack of rattle from the chassis when at full volume, which I do find quite a lot of laptops struggle with. So overall the laptop actually performed excellently in my opinion. It's basically breezed through all of our testing, and in real use it was absolutely great to use. If you want to game but also edit videos in Premiere Pro or Photoshop or whatever, then this is going to be your best friend. I did have an issue though, and my biggest issue, well, the right side vent, or left if you're left-handed, when using a mouse will absolutely cook your hand. The expelled air gets very hot, and after playing games for more than 10 minutes, you're going to get hungry when you start smelling that your hand is cooked and ready to eat. So you could of course get a laptop stand and prop it up a little bit so that the vent is above your hand, but playing on a flat desk like I did is actually pretty uncomfortable. Now I would rather have those vents though than not, but I did have to mention that. At the end of the day, I actually really like the Dream Machine's RG2070S-17EU31 once you get over that stupid name. The screen is beautiful for casual use, movies and gaming, and playing games is absolutely excellent with 240Hz refresh rate. And games load really fast as well, despite the poor storage benchmark results. The keyboard feels great, and the understated look makes for a clean and stylish design. I'm not a huge fan of those crazy LED indicators on the front, and the card reader placement is not really for me either. It's a shame we had such high CPU temperatures, because if it ran cooler for longer, then we'd have better performance over time. But I do like having the ease of removing the battery and also that amount of airflow as well. So it does have sort of pros and cons here. Overall, I think it's a really good high-end laptop. It is expensive, but you are getting some excellent specs and performance for that price if you can get over cooking your hand. But anyway, what do you guys think of the Dream Machine laptop? Let us know down in the comments below. If you've liked this video, hit the thumbs up, check out our merch down below. Don't forget to subscribe and check out our website daily for tech news. I'm Andy, this is Kit Guru, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.